Okay, it would be an injustice not to talk about the basics of supply and demand before moving into the rest of the lectures. You're going to need the basic fundamental understanding of supply and demand to determine price if you're going to understand what we're going to be talking about through the lectures. We're going to talk about demand. Okay, so what we have here, remember your friend the coordinate plane, in algebra, high school algebra, come X and Y. Now we're going to call them supply and demand, DS. So we represent demand, and then just imagine that there's numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Up this one, numbers as well. And then basically what we do is we represent demand by a declining curve, by a downward slanting line. Okay, so this is our demand curve. Why is that? Basically, the diminishing rate of returns, the diminishing marginal rate of returns. It's the law of diminishing returns. And basically that says, if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Basically that says the first thing you want, you really, really want. So if you really like drinking a beer or drinking a glass of water after you've been working on a hot day, that first sip that you take is like the best sip. And so, but for the next sip that you have is slightly less satisfying than that first sip. Or think of it like you're in a desert and you're dying of thirst. Your demand for that first sip, and then just think of this as a 1 here, your demand for that first sip is super high. Like you're willing to pay the maximum that you can for that first sip, because without that first sip, you'll die. But if you just even get one gulp of water, you'll be able to continue on for maybe even hours further when you're at the point of death. So the first one you'll pay a lot for, second one not so much for, third one not so much, until you are fully satisfied with thirst, and you're like, I don't need any water anymore, so I'm not going to pay anything. Okay, and then supply, we're going to represent by an upward slanting line, an upward slope. There we have our upward slanting line there, and we're going to say, because with each additional quantity supplied, like you have two widgets or 2 cups of water, now you have 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, we'll just go with those numbers for now. And then right here, equilibrium, okay, where the 2 lines intersect is equilibrium, and we're going to call that price. So we left off with equilibrium price. Okay, now think about this as if you were at a market, and basically the supplier of fish, let's say, comes to the market and they have only 3 fish. Maybe there's a group of people, so you're there's a group of people and they're representing, say, their respective restaurants in town, and they're in the middle of the marketplace, picture like cobblestone, and somebody is calling out the prices for how much you'll want to spend to the restaurants. The restaurant representative, you, wants to spend on a fish. So the first one, let's say this is like a really highly known, reputable restaurant, and they really want that fish. They need that fish in order to make for their customers, so they can make their money and benefit from it. So they're going to have a high demand for it. They charge the most so they can afford to pay the most. So that first sale goes up, fish goes up for sale, and we're going to say it's like at a price of like $5, okay? And so that first person, there's only 3 fish, they just need one. They're like, look, I can afford that, I'm willing to pay that, and then they'll go ahead and purchase that first one. Well, the next person, again, is like $4, there's 2 fish left, so they're willing to pay the higher price too, and it goes back and forth. So there's 3 fish, the first person's going to pay the lowest amount at $3, which is like you, basically. You're just going to stand there and say, I'm not willing to pay for 5, let's see what happens. Maybe have like chicken at home or something, like somebody down here on the curb would be, well, I already have chicken, so I'll just eat that if this whole fish thing doesn't work out. So they say, or maybe they'll just go without a protein for that night anyway, because there was only 3 fish. Maybe that person came in with 5 fish, and every person could have gotten a fish at the price that they wanted or willing to pay. But basically what happens is we sink into equilibrium where basically the supplier knows this is how many fish my customers typically need on average. I'm going to only get that specific amount of fish. And then the consumer knows I can typically get fish at this price every day. But yeah, basically that's how that idea started. And it works as supply goes down. There's only so many fish to go around that day for whatever reason. If there's a storm, then they're saying, oh yeah, I'll pay the top price. I have to have fish. There's only 3. And then if there's an abundance of fish, everybody gets fish for dirt cheap, right? Makes perfect sense. Let's say that the supply of fish is only at 2. This is going to come up to here, right here. And we're going to say that this is 5, this is 3, 1, 1, 3, and 5. Okay. So now we've added quantities here. There's no hash marks, okay, because we don't need hash marks anyway. So the supply today of fish is only 2. So draw a dotted line up. So here's 2. Go over here. We're going to say it's about 4. Okay. And then now this is our new price. Okay, we're going to call this P2. Okay, so here's P1 at equilibrium. Here's P1 at equilibrium. And this is P2. And then we're going to move our supply curve up because the supply is only at 2 that day. Okay. And now originally we had the equilibrium price at $3. So 3. And now price has gone up. Price has gone up to, we're going to call it 4. So we've seen a price increase of 4 because supply has diminished. Now, what's going to happen is the shepherd who was originally taking care of the sheep is now going to say, well, look, the sheep are fine today. I'm going to have, someone else, my kids or whatever, watch the sheep. And then I'm going to go out because I can get $4 for a fish rather than my other price, which is maybe it's nothing that day, maybe it's not time for a slaughter, maybe he just got done with the wooling the sheep or something like that. And of course this is just theoretical. And so he says, hey, you know what? I'm going to go catch some fish. So he goes out and catches some fish. This is going to increase supply in the market. So our supply is going to go up. And then this is going to move this back down. Okay, he's going to say, look, I can catch 1 fish. So it's going to move back down to this equilibrium price of $3. Now, So we can go back to P3. Okay, and so basically this is how it works.